That is the sound of a distracted, divided, and dead American until they hear. Battle for Freedom, triggering change, one heartbeat at a time. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Watson Prunier from Battle4Freedom on Mojo5 Radio, and I'm glad that you're joining me today. Listen, we're going to start this day off the correct way, and that day is going to start with some American Pride Roasters coffee, because if I don't get you started on that, I'm not getting you started off on the right foot. So let's get into some American Pride Roasters coffee, beautiful people, and then we'll talk on the flip side.
That's it. I've hit the snooze button a dozen times, and now I have to finally get going. But I'm not going to do this day right if I don't start it off with a cup of American Pride Roasters coffee, the official coffee of Mojo5 Radio. But I'm not going to lie to you. They have a wide variety of blends, but I'm leaning towards the one that's named after me, Watson's White Chocolate Caramel. You know what? It sounds as good as those words that just rolled off of my mouth. Listen, get it today, AmericanPrideRoasters.com. Tell them that Watson from Battle4Freedom sent you, and you want Watson's White Chocolate Caramel Blend to start your day off. Join American Pride Roasters Coffee and Mojo5 Radio, and most important, Battle4Freedom, as we celebrate the best coffee in the nation, American Pride Roasters.
Yes, American Pride Roasters Coffee, beautiful people. This is how we're going to get this day started off. Oh, actually, you know what? Before I even forget, I can't just go without this, because also going to make sure that you get New Life Holistic as we get our brains up and running for what we're going to talk about today.
Does your mind seem like it often shuts down before it even starts? Sounds like you need to detox to improve your health in body, mind, and spirit. I'd like to tell you about New Life Holistic. It is an amazing therapy process that uses neurofeedback and biofeedback for many issues that ails everyone. New Life's method and approach to health, balance, energy, and vitality is what sets it apart from anything you have experienced ever before. Call 1-833-4-BIO-LIFE and tell them Watson from Battle4Freedom had sent you. One more thing. Give them the code MOJO50 and save $50 off of your first session. The consult is free. New Life Holistic.
Yes, New Life Holistic. Share this out with as many people as you possibly can, because this is how we're going to do this, folks. We're going to wake everybody up, because there's some disturbing things I want to talk about. I've actually been trying to avoid this for a little bit, only because of the fact that the topics are sensitive, and a lot of people are going to have to really think about the events that have been taking place over the past couple of weeks. And we'll talk more about that again in a bit. If you want to interact with this program, like I've seen tons of names do this already, go to facebook.com/Mojo5 Radio and leave a comment. I see Carolyn, Carrie, Jill and Josh, Curtis, Sarah, Linda, Patricia, Carrie, Sarah, and so much more. I really appreciate every last one of you as you have been communicating and sharing as we go through this. My website, Battle4Freedom.com. Go there. Just figure me out if you can, if that's even possible. I don't think even my wife has figured me out after being together a little bit over, almost married 10 years. But also I want you to go to Mojo50.com, because of the fact that this is how you get a chance to hear me and tons of other people that are on this amazing network. And one of the things that's really cool about this is there's so many different voices that you can hear. And one of the things I want you to do is I want you to go to Mojo50.com and basically click the schedule button. The reason why I tell you to do this is because of the fact that, again, I'm just one of many of the amazing voices on this network that you can appreciate and follow exactly what they have to say. And when you click the schedule button, you get this opportunity to see a lot of different shows. Here I am, you're listening to me earlier in the morning, and before this program aired this morning, if you were listening via iHeartRadio, you would have heard Room 13 with Raquel and Eric, as they try and just give you another perspective of what's going on. Tomorrow morning, before you hear Battle for Freedom in the morning, you will get a chance to hear the HoloNet. Again, click the schedule button, and it will basically take you to all the shows that are available for you to listen and take. And here's the reason why I talk about this, of where I'm going to today with this military industrial complex and, the projected threat. The reason why I go with this is because of the fact that you have right now taking place in DC a wall, a fence, a border, a high presence of the military, and they're basically using they're using 1 day's events to justify turning the United States into a military complex, into a military state. We are now officially a military state. And what's really interesting about this is, as we watch and we see this thing that's taking place right now, everyone had a problem. Remember, last year when Donald Trump used the military to quote unquote block, push, beat people for a photo op with a Bible, you had the church who was out in full force. Where is that progressive church that basically had what they had to say about Donald Trump now? How they basically say they don't stand behind what Donald Trump did last year with having that photo op, because here we are right now. There's a high presence of the military to basically say that this is a threat because of 1 day's event, to say this is a threat because of the events of white supremacy and domestic terrorism, as these Democrats remain silent. Actually, not just silent, but gave hearty approval to the destruction of our cities around the country over the last summer, over last spring. It is right now, the threats is everything they said would happen under Donald Trump. See, here's the military, and think about this. I was just reading the other day that now they're saying that we could go into another Cold War with Russia or China. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, a war? See, as much as the bombacity that I did not appreciate with Donald Trump, you got to give him credit, Democrats. You got to give him credit, never Trumpers. You've got to give him credit, Trump haters, that who stood against him morally, intellectually, and so many other different ways. You had to give him credit that in 4 years we did not go into a new war. But here it is. We're not even a full month into this new presidency, and we're already looking at a war. Joe Biden wants to go off and tell Russia what to do with the opposition. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. You're going to turn around and tell Russia to free this person who ran against Putin, but your same side is sitting here wanting to put the person who ran against Biden impeached. Because this language of unity is very disturbing or very confusing when everything you're doing is a level of confrontation and basically oppression. You're basically, when I look at I've got to find this. This one was crazy. When I saw this last week, and again, listening to the other shows reminded me I forgot to talk about it. I saw this thing where they're talking about the new laws of what they want to do in reference to gun laws, draconian gun laws. When we sit there and we tell you folks that they're coming after our guns, your guns, our guns. When we tell you that and you don't believe us, you don't believe it's going to happen, I'm going to tell you, as you continue to go back through the broadcasts that I've mentioned, I want you to go to the broadcast where I talk about the Stockholm syndromes, the Stockholm syndicates, the whole idea that many of you who call yourself progressive, I tell you, you have been regressive because of the fact that you have been in bondage. You have been mentally raped by socialism and Democrat and progressive ideology. The mental abuse that has happened the physical and mental abuse has happened so long that you've walked away from any common sense to let you know how bad you have been deceived. Ownership and ownership of private property is threatened right now because of the fact that we have people who are in charge who are doing the very thing that they said Donald Trump would do 4 years ago. I mean, the black people were worried that they're going to be put in jail and they're going to be slaves. And we now have language from Democrats that talks about imprisonment for those who don't comply with the rules. We've replaced the flu with COVID-19 and now have created this pandemic and basically this design for everyone to comply to our demands or else. Understand, this language right now is that even though they didn't have all the full support to make the impeachment happen, and even though there was no logical or no constitutional legality for them to pursue the impeachment process once Donald Trump had left the office, they still wanted to pursue it. They still wanted to destroy him. It's almost like their armies are moving and mobilizing to destroy people. And guess what? If you don't take a shot, if you don't wear a mask, if you don't keep your mouth silent, they will muzzle you themselves. This military industrial complex. I mean, and when you think about this, they try to push this all on Republicans, all want to go to war, but think of the people who are gone. John McCain, great guy, right? But he wanted war. John Bolton, great guy, right? But he wanted war. You've got to give, those of you who hated Donald Trump so much, you couldn't stand him morally. I wouldn't say completely morally that I condemned him. I just didn't care for the guise of basically saying, God bless America, and I'm a Christian, and God's the greatest person on earth. There's no greater person than God. These are the statements that people are basically saying about Donald Trump. They're putting Jesus behind Donald Trump, and they're putting the Satan behind Joe Biden. But there's no change in behavior in your life that signifies that Jesus is actually moving your heart. But the other people who think that they're morally superior, I don't think I'm morally superior than Donald Trump. For those of you who think that that's where I'm going with this, because if that's your opinion of me, then you haven't been paying attention to me long enough. Maybe you are stuck in your own interpretations of truth or hypocrisies that you can't even pay attention or listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. I point out the inconsistencies on both sides of the aisle. I'm willing to even be unpopular, even if it means dying for the truth. I'm not dying for either party. I'm not dying for either candidate. I'm not dying for anyone but Christ. See, in this military-industrial complex is building up all this fear, all these pseudo-enemies, all these quasi-enemies, these quasi-threats. They built all of that up for the last 4 years. White supremacy, domestic terrorism. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh, okay, so the cities that have burned from George Floyd, from Mike Brown, from Trayvon Martin, the cities and the looting and the robbing and all these different things, those were threats. Billions and billions of dollars of damage on U.S. private citizen property. Threats. And you remain silent. So I sit here and I'm wondering for all of those of you who were so determined to peg out Donald Trump to be this tyrant. What was it? The military-industrial complex will do whatever it takes. They will basically, instead of ask for permission, they'll do an apologize letter if there is any conscience or character or integrity to apologize. Joe Biden said and this is on TV, this is in an interview, I think it was on NBC, that ruling by executive orders is tyranny. Now, you listen to the Daily Mojo that comes on 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. 8 p.m. you already have Dominic Izzo going. He starts at 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. But at 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., you get a chance to listen to the Daily Mojo, and they're sitting there and they have this count out there that you can listen to that gives you a list of all the different, the number of executive orders that you can follow, and you can see that Joe Biden was against in October, but he's made and everybody's making all these excuses as to why he can pass these executive orders. There's a thread about George Bush and his overreach, and Obama did millions more. See, here's where we are right now. The projected threat. We always say this: when you point your finger at somebody, there's always three fingers pointing back at you. And there's a lot of information right now that's pointing back to a lot of you who wanted to condemn conservatives, condemn Republicans, condemn Trump. And again, as much as I don't agree with the QAnon, because I think there's a lot of deception involved in there, I think that the QAnon has been nothing but a conspiracy nonsense to keep conservatives and Republicans, libertarians, and everybody distracted from their real tasks of raising people of substance and character. We're so determined to see people go to jail. I mean, literally, when you see the basis of everything that we followed with QAnon and everything like this, what was our hope? People are going to jail. People are being imprisoned. We mobilize people to take out these corrupt individuals. Yep. The Democrats are turning us into terrorists for our words and opinions. We will all soon be jailed for speech soon. That's right, Sarah. That is right. Like I said, we're going to turn around. Predictions are meaningless if they don't come to pass. I don't present myself to be some prophet that can determine when things will come to pass. I'm just making educated guesses. So it's nothing hard in the sand of what's going to happen. But I just think that I'm guessing by April, Biden could be replaced. By April Fool's Day, Biden's replaced. By July 4th, they turn around and they basically decide to say, we're going to free Americans of masks because we have enough Americans who have taken the vaccine shots. And we're going to use Independence Day to free ourselves from the tyranny of COVID. We're going to free ourselves from the tyranny of masks. And we're going to celebrate the freedom we have in these vaccines that deliver us from the threat of COVID. Those are just wild guesses on my part. And if it's true, well, I'll try and remember to come back to this broadcast and basically cite my predictions. That's if I'm proven true. Again, we're watching things happen. I've watched in the last month, not even a month. He was inaugurated on the 21st, do the math, 9/10, and today is the 4th. So it's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks into this new administration, and we have seen moves made by Democrats in charge in major cities. Now get this. He just stripped away the military from giving the government from giving military-graded weapons to local police stations and companies and organizations around this. Now, it was kind of concerning watching that our local police have a lot of these concerning weapons or these tanks and things like that, especially when it really wasn't being used against the criminal threats that were affecting us. You don't believe me? I saw something earlier today that was very, very interesting. And I had this. So in the news, Marilyn Manson, if you go to Daily Mail, the LAPD, 11 cop cars or whatever it is, choppers, everything that you can imagine, 11 cop cars arrive and surround the mansion of Marilyn Manson. They wanted to do a wellness check on Marilyn Manson because of all these accusations about sexual assault and so much more. And so they're out there trying to protect Marilyn Manson from dying And I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, okay, so you actually have 11 squad cars to go in and make certain that this person is not going to die because you're concerned about the mental state of this individual. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, you got Bloods and Crips killing folks for a long time. Hispanics, whites, blacks, minorities of all sizes have been affected by threats of death and persecution and oppression for decades. And what are the police doing to stop that, to put an end to it? It's almost like you're allowing the insignificant people, the ones without the money, to die, because that means that that's less territory for you to conquer, because you've allowed the other people to kill themselves off. You've allowed the criminals to run roughshod over American citizens who just want to be left alone. It's very mind-blowing that they can actually spend 11 squad cars, but you have daily the number of the amount of domestic violence that has increased hundredfolds because of these lockdowns, because of these restrictions. There are men, there are husbands and wives who are getting beaten up. There are children who are being beaten up, or even, and I dare say, assaulted in ways that are just beyond fists. But we're going to go protect. All lives precious. All lives are precious. All lives matter. But you're going after a star? You're going after an icon represented with so much darkness and craziness. But those we deem innocent are defenseless. Whether you're in the womb or out, there are no cop cars storming Planned Parenthood. There are no cop cars that would have joined that person to shut down Pizzagate. There's no cop cars. I mean, okay, now granted, you do have a lot of these undercover agencies, and I'm really appreciative of every American citizen and every person who's participating in these underground efforts to free people from human trafficking. But why isn't this a more global effort? See, if we really want to put our minds behind it, and look what we watched Democrats do in 14 days of transforming D.C. Imagine if they put that effort into transforming their cities, their localities. Indianapolis would not look like what it's supposed to. Why not put a border around Chicago like you just did around D.C. and basically put all the criminals behind the cages? Oh, well, no, I'm sorry, we do that. And then, like in New York City, we set them free once again because of the fact that it was never about ending crime. It was about maintaining control through the chaos and the threats. How the brown shirts overcame Germany, Austria, and so many other different places. We now have Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and so much more that are the progressive arm and the physical arm to exact their threats and send to people, don't you dare vote for a Republican or conservative because we're about to take over. And you know what? It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. We tried to warn you. I'm not going to say I told you so. No. You don't deserve that. No. You don't deserve that. You were warned? No. It's not that I wish the worst on you. I can't stop what's coming. If you see what's taken place in 14 days, this is what they've accomplished: a wall, a fence, a military to block off the free access to buildings that we've accessed for a long time. 4 years ago, during the Trump administration, the inauguration, they were burning, they were looting, and nothing stopped it. They did not stop it. And you who hated the freedom that you had under the previous administration are about to suffer the consequences of your willful rebellion against the truth. Listen, we're going to go to a break. because I'm getting worked up. And you and I need some lovely elevator music. I'm your host, Watson Pretty from Battle for Freedom. Let's go to a break, and I'll talk to you on the flip side. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Watson Prenay from Battle for Freedom on Mojo5 Radio. Listen, this is going to be very interesting as we sit here talking about the whole idea of a military industrial complex and the projected threat. Folks, one of the things that's really been driving me up the wall as we sit here and talk about this. My name is Watson Prenay. I'm your host from Battle for Freedom on Mojo5 Radio. And again, I really appreciate every last one of you who have decided to pay attention, follow, and hear what I have to say on this broadcast today. You're out of coffee, Renee Marie. Well, this is comments that I'm getting for those of you who did not know, but I will do the best that I can to go to facebook.com/Mojo5 Radio and hear the comments of those who want to spend the time and listen to what we have to say on Mojo5 Radio and the unique programs that are available to you. One of the other things that I'm praying that you get a chance to listen to this is it's about to get cold here. So it's going to start snowing today, and then this weekend we're going to go to a polar vortex. And for those of you who are not aware, it's going to be so cold out that with the length of the coldness that are going to be affected, many of us may be able to keep our things outside to stay cool. You needed that extra refrigeration space. Guess what? You can use nature to keep your things cool. And even if it does get warmer, the great thing about listen, get yourself a cat cooler. Let's talk about this in a second, okay?
When the world is going to hell in a handbasket, you need rugged. You need strong. You need durable. You need cat coolers. These are the best coolers on the market in 27, 55, and 88 quart. Go to catcoolers.com and give them the code Watson to save 10% on your purchase. Don't settle for those substandard containers that melt, leak, and destroy your memorable moments. Tell them that Watson from Battle for Freedom sent you. Cat Coolers.
Yes, not only cat coolers, folks. I also want you to do this is because, listen, it's going to be so cold, and yeah, we'll definitely keep our snow. Actually, we had some fun earlier this week. So we got our kids snow pants. We got our kids some snow pants and the new boots, new coats, and so we spent some time out in the snow earlier this week. having fun. The wife and the girls putting snowmen together, and it was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie to you, talking about a military industrial complex. There was this at one point my youngest, my 4-year-old. They're just loving it. My 4 and 6-year-old, they're not even constructing a snow person. They are. I just give them piles of snow, and they just plop on top of it, supposedly making a snowman. My wife and my oldest, they are just feverishly making their boulders, making their bodies. They were struggling with the middle part that they want to stay all together straight. But the other two, it's like at one point I just kept giving them piles of snow. They kept plopping, and I found all these reasons to slip and fall in the snow. Let's make a convenient snow angel here or snow angel there, and I'm not gonna lie, the funniest thing was watching my 4-year-old. She was army crawling through the snow. Every chance she could get, she was army crawling to get pieces of snow, get through the snow, because she felt so invincible in the snow. So, so if there was a military industrial complex moment, I chuckled at watching my youngest, my kids have so much fun. We're like, no snowball fights this time. I'm like, not happening. Because one, there was a lot of ice in the snow, and I'm like, I'm not getting hit because I know someone's gonna hit me in the face, and ain't nobody got no time for that. But so we have the inclement weather coming through, and again, there's gonna be moments that you're gonna use the cold for your advantage, and if you don't, and once it warms up. Don't worry about this. The cat cooler will keep your things cold for another 7 days. And hopefully within that time period, it'll keep the temperatures low so you can keep your things healthy. This is something to think about. Keep your things fresh. Go and do that if you have the chance, you have the time. But I had to take a break from what I was talking about for a minute because I had myself worked up, and the things I want to talk about right now are really interesting in this. See, you have to understand that the military industrial complex, the reason why this happens is because there has to be an attitude of superiority that happens from the people who are making the rules and basically not living by them. You don't believe me? Let's talk about the whole idea that John Kerry said taking a private jet to a climate conference in 2019 was meant for somebody like him. That John Kerry basically says, yes, I know that I emitted more carbon emissions by taking my jet to this conference, but people like me need to be there. It's not the fact, it doesn't matter whether or not I'm violating the very rules that I'm holding against you. Like the mask rules that were held by Pelosi and even our president, who says that you must wear a mask on federal grounds. Well, isn't the White House federal? So then technically speaking, everywhere Joe Biden goes in the White House, he should be wearing a mask. But those standards don't apply for them. It only applies for us. That's why when you sit here and talk about the projected threats of tyranny, because this is exactly what they were going to do. And for those of you who want to keep making excuses for them, I have to say that, you know what? You no longer have a leg to stand on. When you turned around and you basically pushed with all your might, if everything you have. Listen, Donald Trump was not and is not a racist. He's an opportunist. Just like the people who are in power right now, they're taking this opportunity to exact their laws, push things down, use executive orders that were once deemed tyrannical. They're doing it right now because this is what they've always wanted to do. Everything you're about to see, remember, everything you're about to see about the Democrat Party is about to unfold itself. And many people who are in the Republican Party, the Libertarian Party, who may come off as individuals who want to promote your freedom, but everything that they do, all their actions, everything that they say, only reflects that there is a hint, there's a tinge of tyranny within. This waiting to bubble up, waiting to come out and basically exact things over people rather than allowing them to enjoy their constitutional freedoms. Our constitutional freedoms are about to be obliterated right now in the face of basically saying, this is for your better. We know what's better for you. We know what's better for you. You remember when Donald Trump used that language? Or what the government can do for you to help you and get things done and get things accomplished? You mocked him. You mocked him that there wasn't going to be, and then the worst one that gets me is Fauci, who last week keeps talking about the idea of the president flipping and flopping, and Fauci has done more flipping and flopping than every one of you who wanted to believe the science, because this administration is not about faith, it's about the science. So, what is science? What is science? Science is about basically seeing observable, repeatable data, taking information of events, of processes that takes place, or whatever it is that you're studying, and being able to study the data that's repeatable. It's repeatable information. So let's go with the repeatable information that we've been telling you for the longest time. That in every society where they disarmed the people, crime did not go down, and the government pushed in its own tyranny. When you disarm the people, when you disarm the people in Europe, when you disarm the people in countries like Australia, when you disarm the people in any institution around the world in the guise of socialism and communism, tyranny comes after that. Why is it that they're no longer talking about Venezuela? The news did everything they could to squelch Venezuela. The people have been dying. You know what? Don't be surprised if you don't have the largest level of genocide in Venezuela right now because of the tyranny that failed, and they're squelching the voices that will point out what's going on. What do you think is happening in China? Why do you think they're going out of their way to shut down the people in Hong Kong? Why do you think they're going out of their way to censor all the things that are going on? You censor the speech, you censor the information, you censor the data. The military-industrial complex is moving in, and basically we start off with the censorship of speech. Then you continue with disarming the people. And then you start taking, like as Tim said earlier, private property is no longer available because we're using it for the better good. It doesn't matter if you've paid for this. It doesn't matter if you earned this. We're basically commandeering what you have for the better good for the people. Now, they won't do that to their property. You won't see these Hollywood elitists giving up their property to basically make it possible, because all this time and all these moments that they were talking about saving the immigrants on their 100,000 acre properties with 8 to 10,000 square foot and 100 room mansions. They had all the room to basically take in the people, but they didn't do it. The military complex basically says, I'm commandeering your assets and basically making everything work because this is a government mandate. My wife and I are in the process of watching the TV series Jericho. Came out on CBS more than 10, 12 years ago, and we're watching Jericho. And it's a constant theme that in the light of a nuclear disaster, in the threat of war, and no information that's going on for you to know about who is the threat and who is the trust, who are we to trust? And it's so crazy because the fact that many states in the United States, there were bombs that went off, and all of a sudden you now have Chinese TV reporting the news. You could not ask for a funnier time to watch a series on this. And there's just one point where you have these private contractors who basically decide that they're going to go from city to city and commandeer supplies in the name of the government. Now, without knowing if they truly were sanctioned by the government, you have nothing but chaos, and the people have to now fight and defend themselves. They have to defend themselves from the threat of tyranny because the government says, I'm coming in and I'm taking what you have. You have no choice. I'm taking it. See, and this is what's about to happen in this administration. All that extra money that you were able to get from the previous administration, from the Republican and Trump tax cuts, we're taking that back. We're relieving you of those funds because we know better what to do with that. Even though we love spending and we have not curtailed our spending, we know better what to do with this money. The military industrial complex. The projected threat of what everything that Donald Trump and conservatives and domestic terrorists would be for us in this country is exactly what this administration and their lackeys, Black Lives Matter and Antifa, have been. It's amazing that more energy is going by the Democrats to get rid of Marjorie Greene. No matter how much you disagree with her, then they put efforts in silencing and neutering Black Lives Matter terrorists as well as Antifa. See, it really goes to show you who they really care. They really shows you if they had the wherewithal to do what they did in the last 14 days to mobilize a military complex in America, they had that energy and same power and strength to do the same thing in cities around this country to protect those from being. There never could or would have been possible of a Chaz Chop zone if the very same people who are in power now in D.C. and around the country who were in power back then in D.C. and around the country would have done the same thing. They have the wherewithal to get it done, but they don't want to get it done because the message isn't about saving you. The main message is about maintaining power. You know what, Carolyn? She did a great question. Does our government get ideas of what to try on us from Hollywood movies? Oh, no, actually, I'm going to say yes and no. I'm going to say yes and no. And here's why. Because the Hollywood movies are based on what they watched other countries do. And sometimes there's a message in the movies that come out because they say what they're going to do. Think about this. Last year, Netflix came out with a movie of someone trying to kidnap a conservative Supreme Court judge's child. You don't think that was not a message to Amy Coney Barrett, to Brett Kavanaugh, to Gorsuch, and whomever else? I will come after your family if you don't pass these gun laws, you don't vote on these gun laws to let us take over this country. You don't think that wasn't a message? They've been making that threat. When you sit here and you watch a lot of the movies, you watch a lot of the threats that have been taking place. Oh yeah, the movies, Carolyn, the movies and the TV shows that we've been watching has been doing nothing but set the stage of how this is going to happen. Do you realize that CBS, and again, it's amazing, another CBS series, Salvation, based on an Elon Musk type like guy who sits there and builds a spaceship to basically get off of this rock in the event of nuclear disasters and world hunger and everything like that. And what do? They commandeer the spaceship to basically say, we're going to decide. Now, you made the spaceship. It was your money that made all this stuff possible, but we're going to tell you how this is going to happen. We're commandeering this. We decide who is going to be the ones who are going to go on this thing here. We're going to decide who's going to use this spaceship to get off this rock. Oh, let's see. Let's look at the other ones. 2012 with John Cusack, where you turn around and they had 3 arcs and they decided who was going to live and who wasn't. You had people working. You had the slate. Now, mind you, this is the beautiful part about this, because as you sit there and you watch 2012 and all, and as fantastical and crazy as it was, when you look at the underlying message that happened, even towards the end of the movie, they had all those Chinese people or Tibetan people, wherever they were from, working on building their arcs, but they never had a desire to let those people who worked to build the ark to get on the very ark that they provided to save the rich and wealthy. Right now, D.C. is surrounded by an ark-like fence. And the people who built it and voted you into office now no longer have access to be on the ark of DC. When you've set up these fences to protect yourselves from quote unquote threats to America, there was no fence erected when they decided to almost kill when a Bernie supporter drove from Illinois all the way to D.C., almost kills Scalise, and almost killed a few other people. Rand Paul was there as well. Go listen to Rand Paul's speech as he talks about the mockery and the clear hypocrisy of trying to impeach the president on words of quote unquote inciting violence, and that violence was incited and supported by Democrats for so long. Kamala Harris, yeah, let it go on. Kamala Harris, we just now have a person, is it an Asian person, who got arrested 2-3 times for not just inciting violence, committing violence, and she basically supported funds to basically release these people back out onto the street. In New York, when you sit here and you watch the whole process of criminals being pushed back out on the street for most heinous crimes. They call them petty crimes, things that they shouldn't keep them in jail. But look at the structure of how they control people in New York. It's not the police who are threatening the people into compliance. It's the Democrats putting the criminals back out on the street. And the fact that they were willing to basically inoculate terrorists in Gitmo before they inoculated American citizens in this country goes to show you exactly how they choose or plan to rule. That the people in Gitmo are living better than the people in your neighborhoods, in your local neighborhoods. The military industrial complex. Let me help you understand how this thing works. You don't have to deploy the military if you create conditions horrible enough that you mobilize the citizenry to basically go off and do the very works that you need. See, to be tactical in winning this war, you never send your people out first. You send out the expendables that will basically exhaust their resources so that when you go in to take over, there's not much of a fight. See, let the Bloods, let the Crips, let something 13. What are they called? Something 13. Let them go out and start killing people. Let them go out and do some oppression. And as they sit there and they have their pockets of their dominions, pun intended, they can turn around and centralize themselves so that all we have to do is drop a couple of bombs, drop a couple of different things on there, or even drop tainted supplies into these war zones and let them die off. Again, it's very interesting because there's this point where they dropped supplies from China into these American cities, and everybody was so desperate and so eager for the supplies and the food and everything like that because they didn't prepare. They didn't prepare for the worst case scenario, so they were eagerly waiting for their blessings. They were eagerly waiting for their blessings and supplies from the government, and they decided to eat chocolates. They decided to eat anything that came off of a pallet, even though there was a concern that that stuff could have been tainted and you could have died. Because when you're desperate and when you don't plan, any plan seems like a plan that you will use because you failed to plan. See a lot of plans in there, and sometimes we don't have plans to prepare us for the worst case scenario. We are now looking at yes, MS-13. Thank you, Tim, and yes, Curtis. The pawns go first. They will use the military-industrial complex. They will save every soldier, or even because Matt Bracken has yes, here it is. Matt Bracken has this amazing series called Enemies, Foreign and Domestic. Love this guy, what he has. He has a few books on here. One of them is called Enemies, Foreign and Domestic. Really powerful book that really shows you how, if you want to see how the military, if you want to see how this administration is about to shut down our rights to guns, our rights to feel free in doing this, get yourself Enemies, Foreign and Domestic by Matt Bracken. You will see a convenient shooting that takes place that they decide. Think about this. In the news, we've had more incidences of people, incidences. Wow. We have more occurrings of people killing their family. Here in Indianapolis, two Sundays ago, a black teenager kills his black family and a pregnant woman and her unborn child. I just saw in Oklahoma a couple of days ago, you had another black person shoot and kill members of his family. You're having these convenient things. Now think about this. And I'm not saying it didn't happen during Trump's administration, but it's going to happen more and more and more and more of these incidents, these moments taking place where we're going to show the instability of gun ownership and why we need draconian laws to take away people's rights from them. So get yourself a copy, and he'll even sign it for you. Get yourself a copy of Enemies, Foreign and Domestic. That's the first one. It talks about how they use the BATFV. They basically use government organizations to disarm Americans, and if you don't, we'll kill you if you don't give up your guns. Look at the information of the new laws. Go back to whether it's listed. My buddy Alan Chester posts what they do. They're even now looking at doing psych evals on the people in your home to see whether or not you need to own a gun. On law-abiding American citizens. This is tyranny. This is tyranny. The second one is Domestic Enemies, the Reconquista, Aztlan, of how they basically try and take back, Mexico comes in, invades the United States, and tries to take back the lands that we supposedly stole from them. The third one is Foreign Enemies and Traitors, if I'm correct. Yeah. Foreign Enemies and Traitors, FEAT, F-E-A-T. But Matt Bracken, check him out. Really good content. And it really sets the stage. It shows you play for play, exactly how they will take over our country, disarming citizens and basically being see, here's the scariest part about tyranny. Here's the scariest part about socialism. Here's the scariest part about communism, fascism that would take place in this country. Next to Japan and Israel, we are the most technologically advanced country in the world. We have social media. We have an information highway. We have data and redundancy in this country like there's no tomorrow. That means that information can travel at the speed of light, faster than a click. And they could push down laws, lies, and deception faster than you can imagine. Think about what happened last year with George Floyd. Tragedy of what happened with George Floyd. But we had more information, more video footage, and vitriol hatred about a black man losing his life. And we didn't even have all the information. We, 6 years prior with Michael Brown in St. Louis, in Ferguson, Missouri, we had more information. We had only enough information to keep people indignant to burn down this country, and they didn't have all the information. There's a video I watched the day that Michael Brown lost his life. Two black men were talking. They were 75 feet from the covered body of Michael Brown in the street, and the black guys talked and said, "I saw the whole thing." The homeboy went up to the cop and was beating him up in his car and then ran away. And the cop said, "Stop, stop." He turned around and he started rushing at him. And as he was running back, the cop went pop, pop, pop. But I had pastors, I've had black Christians so indignant on quote unquote systemic racism that they didn't want to hear the information. They didn't want to hear the truth. They only wanted their narrative proven correct. Well, in the process of doing that, it shows how programmed you are. The military-industrial complex worked its way through the education system, not in the past decade, not in the past 2 decades, but in the last 5 decades to basically control the minds of the, and I'm going to say it, whether you be informed, whether you be offended or not, the less informed, the less discerning. Because if you can't discern truth from error, it goes beyond political party. It goes to the nature of seeing the character of man, that we are all sinners. We are all corrupt. And if you can't wake up and realize the tyranny that's taking place in 14 days right before your eyes, and you willfully rebuked and hated Donald Trump, there's nothing I can do for you. But if you hear the words, "Depart from me, I never knew you," I didn't bring about your condemnation. You did. Because you projected threats and sins on people, and you kept quiet about your own and the ones of the people you support. Closing off really quiet and calm. Brad Staggs and Daily Mojo's up next, folks. I'm your host, Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom. I'm checking out. God bless. Take care. Goodbye. Go home. Get out of here.